Okay, can everyone see this?
Yep, looks great.
Great. Okay, so if you don't know me, my name is Ariana Jordan, and I'm a PhD student here at University of Oklahoma, working on AWAKEN with all these lovely folks listed here. And today I'd like to present about a unique instrument suite that is one of our major sources of observations during AWAKEN, and that is called CLAMPS, or more specifically, the Collaborative Lower Atmospheric Mobile Profiling System. So what is CLAMPS? Well, here's some pictures of its exterior, and you can see it's a trailer. But this trailer houses multiple remote sensing instruments that can collect information on the boundary layer in the area it's located. Specifically, we have an ARRI system on board, which can collect downwelling infrared radiance. And then these observations can be input into an algorithm called TROPO-E, which can give us retrievals of temperature and water vapor. And the ARRI kind of slides in and out of the back of the trailer when we want to deploy. We also have a halo Doppler scanning LiDAR to collect kinematic observations of wind and turbulence, and we can adjust it to just poke out of the top of the trailer while the body of the LiDAR remains inside, protected. And then we have a microwave radiometer that measures downwelling microwave radiance, so kind of similar to ARRI, though at a lower resolution vertically. But it has the ability to better measure through clouds, and it's good to have if the ARRI is malfunctioning or having issues. So those are the three instruments on board that can provide information on the vertical atmosphere and its evolution over time. But we also have a MET tower at the back of the trailer that you can see in this third picture sticking out. And it's kind of near the microwave radiometer here. And CLAMPS also possesses the ability to launch radiosondes when we deem it valuable. And so we actually have two CLAMPS systems that we call CLAMPS 1 and CLAMPS 2. And these pictures here represent the CLAMPS 2 system, but both have all of these instrument capabilities. So regarding the AWAKEN campaign, we're interested in the potential influence of wind farms on the boundary layer. Well, having two CLAMP systems gives us the opportunity to take measurements both inside and outside the general domain of the wind farm. So that's what we aimed for, and after some site visits, we deployed our first CLAMP systems at the Rolling Meadows Golf Club, which is a golf course surrounded by wind farms from just about every direction in the near vicinity except the west. Meanwhile, CLAMPS 2 was placed at a site a little further south and away from the influence of turbines at one of the ARM sites, E36. And these sites were chosen because they best match what we were looking for to compare an environment influenced by wind farms and another that isn't. They also had favorable terrain with little vegetation and power availability. Though something to consider about the CLAMPS 1 site is because it's near a golf course, we had to be wary of golf balls hitting it. So that's where having this kind of trailer body is nice to protect the instruments. But then also at CLAMPS 2, though it's a good distance from this red dirt wind farm to the southwest, the red dirt turbines are visible from that site, from that location. So that's something to keep in mind, particularly when there's strong southerly flow. So I'd like to showcase a few interesting cases, the CLAMPS at both sites measured, one from the fall campaign last year and one from the summer. For background, CLAMPS was deployed at the AWAKEN site in the fall and winter of 2022, and during this summer from June 16th to current day, so it's still out there right now. Listed here are some specifics on the temporal and vertical resolutions where applicable, but looking at the area and microwave radiometer, you'll notice there was a lot of unavailability, particularly during the fall because we had some instrument issues there. And when we do have them, the ARRI collects observations about every 10 minutes. And this summer, the process of running temperature and water vapor retrievals is still ongoing. So for the sake of this presentation, I would just like to focus on the LiDAR data, specifically wind speed and wind direction, which is collected from conical VAD scans every 10 to 15 minutes. And vertical stares data from when the LiDAR is just staring vertically. and the vertical spacing is roughly 28 meters. So to start, here's one case that caught our eye from the fall campaign on November 2nd, 2022. So I have laid out the wind speed from both sites in this top panel, in this top row, followed by the wind direction in the second row and the vertical velocity. So the area within the wind farms is this first column here. So this case nicely illustrates some of the features that you can visually see looking at clamps time height cross sections like these, such as gravity waves, which we do have occur over the region in the nighttime and early morning hours. And you can kind of see in this wavy motion that they got picked up within and below the nocturnal low-level jet. And it's visible at both sites, though the CLAMPS 1 golf course site shows a slightly stronger nocturnal low-level jet at its peak, just slightly. What was really interesting about these waves is the duration of time they lasted. And so to get an idea of how primed the environment was for them, here's one of the first after dark visible satellite images going into the morning hours. Because it's early, it's a little hard to see, but in southern Oklahoma, you can tell that the waves are in the clouds throughout this whole southern region. And this is all propagating northward. So this is around 10 a.m., which is about where the nocturnal low-level jet ends. And so it sticks around for a while, even in this region. But even the nocturnal low-level jet ending at around 10 a.m. is also an interesting feature because that's not the nocturnal hours anymore. So going forward, the wind direction is pretty straightforward, southerly winds. And looking at the vertical velocity in this bottom panel here, there's interesting periods in the CLAMPS 1, from the CLAMPS 1 LiDAR, where there's this period of updrafts where the gravity waves are strongest. That isn't seen from the CLAMPS 2 LiDAR. In fact, there's this period of enhanced downward mixing from the CLAMPS 2 LiDAR in that same spot, so kind of the opposite. And this is interesting because there's no major shift in the wind direction where these occur, which is something we would normally expect in these occurrences. Also notice that there's these blips of downward mixing from CLAMPS 1, which are kind of enhanced during this gravity wave period, sort of near the surface. And these extend about 200-ish meters or so. So we're talking about about the height of the turbines. So that's something to keep in mind. However, we also kind of see that at CLAMPS 2, though it looks to be more like upward mixing and it's not as prominent as from CLAMPS 1. So that's one interesting case from fall 2022 that has been receiving ongoing analysis because it does have all around notable features. Now I'd like to jump to this summer where we've had some extreme temperatures down here, which has not been great in general, but has been really good for providing a lot of nice, deep boundary layer cases. So here's a really recent day from this month, August 4th. And it has some of the features from the last case. For one, we have an even stronger nocturnal low-level jet, which, as we know, is a prominent feature in the Southern Great Plains and can make for some interesting data, either by itself or by enhancing features like the gravity waves from the last case that we might not see as easily otherwise. Well, this case is a great example of a summer nocturnal low-level jet that's observed in the wind speeds. Again, from both sites, though it's seen a little better from the LiDAR near the wind farms. This case also looks to have 4 passages in the early morning hours after the jet recedes. And again, you can notice it in these wavy motions, in this case after the low-level jet instead of within it. So around between 10 and 15 Z. The waves from the fall case did not appear to originate from convective outflow, but this one is much more obvious in radar. So if we take a look at this radar loop, we can see it kind of propagating through. So it was a really interesting case that went through. Skipping to the vertical velocity, it's pretty consistent between the sites, except for around 0 Z, there's this period of enhanced mixing. But we also see kind of that near surface, from the surface to 200 meters, mixing going on that we don't see at clamps 2. So that could be an example of mechanically induced mixing from the turbines. So going back to the wind direction, that's where things start to get a little different looking. You might notice that they look a little different or a lot different. And unfortunately, our azimuth encoder from our LiDAR did end up malfunctioning for a good portion of the summer cases. And so I looked into a bit on how to correct this. Luckily, there's C1A LiDAR data. Thank you to Mateo, who I think is on the call, who has provided data to compare with that. And so I've been using that as kind of estimating a correction for the wind direction. And if I just plug that correction in, which is about 140 degrees, just willy-nilly here, this is what it looks like as a before and after. So the nighttime wind directions are still a little different, but during the daytime, it matches a lot better. And if you look at synoptically what's going on, there was a stationary front over our period around 12Z that was also present in the early morning hours. So at least in that case, if there's a front between our sites, then that would make more sense why there's a wind direction shift. But so yeah, that's something that I'm looking into for a lot of the summer cases, because if that correction is consistent with C1A data, then we can just apply that to the other cases really easily. So that's really nice. But yeah, these are a couple of cases I wanted to highlight, and probably down the road, I'll be presenting a more in-depth analysis on them. But for today, I'd like to switch gears and kind of highlight some resources for accessing clamps yourself. So we have some both new developments and old things that have been there a while that people just may not be aware of. And so the first thing I would like to highlight is our new CLAMPS data viewer. So we've always had kind of real-time CLAMPS data online for a while, but this is a new website developed by an undergrad here, Victor Alvarez, and Dr. Tyler Bell. And they did a great job making this a more kind of user-friendly and visually pleasing website. And so I'd like to walk everyone through how to get to it. And so if we navigate to the NSSL website, you can click Research Tools, Science Applications, and this takes you to the ongoing projects at NSSL. We have a CLAMPS tab here. So you click that, and then on the right, we have this tab called CLAMPS Real-Time Data. If we click that, then that brings us to CLAMPS 1 and CLAMPS 2 data viewer, where we can look at what CLAMPS is doing at the AWAKEN site in real time. So I just clicked CLAMPS 1 for an example. Let's look at the previous day. So here we can see collections from the area that's on board turned into retrievals via TropoE. Here's dew point, and we can make our data selections here on the right. If we want to keep with TropoE instrument and look at other variables, this is dew point. We can look at potential temperature. We can check out regular temperature, and we can look at these retrievals that way. If we want to look at other instrumentation, we have DLFP, which refers to the stairs. This is the backscatter. And we can view the vertical velocity, that, like I've shown in the presentation, either high sensitivity or low sensitivity here. We can also look at the Doppler LiDAR VADs. So we can see how the wind direction is behaving along with the wind speed, as well as all these other tools. We have housekeeping as well, so we can see how the temperatures in and outside are doing. So that's the kind of data availability that we have. And we can also, on this left panel, you can filter by dates. I believe this starts, January 1st, 2021. and you can sort it like that, or you can actually filter it by clicking this funnel here. You can filter by year or instrument. And so, excuse me. And so that's really nice for if you want to look at a specific instrument. And then there's these little pills where if they're highlighted, that means the data is available. And if they're not, then it's not available at that time. So it's really nice to be able to do that. And you can do the same thing with CLAMPS 2. If you want to compare data, you can have 2 tabs open and look at the same day. And so we had a time of power outage with CLAMPS 2. But what's really nice is there's also like these, it doesn't just tell what data is available, but when it's available. So the timing of the data, which is really nice to see. And you can also just scroll through using hotkeys, which are the carets, and it's really nice as well because you don't have to use your mouse. So that's kind of a nice, quick way to be able to view real-time data. But what if you want to work with the actual data and not just view it? So we have a actual thread server where we store our CLAMPS data. And I'll show you guys where that is right now. So you can navigate to the same areas, clicking Science Applications and CLAMPS. But instead of the real-time data, you'll go ahead and navigate to this tab called Get Data. And this will lead you to the Data Access Threads catalog, where we have all of our CLAMPS files stored. And so we have campaigns, CLAMPS, which where the files automatically go, and our Doppler LiDAR track, which we also have here at OU. And for in campaigns, we have a bunch of different campaigns that CLAMPS was a part of, and AWAKEN is here. So we have the fall 2022 campaign. We can click that, and we have our CLAMPS systems here. And we have the DLFP, which is the stairs. You can click that, and this will present with you all of the different CLAMPS files that are available from that deployment. And if you click on one, you can download it that way by clicking this HTTP file download. But yeah, that's for stairs. We have the VADs here. You could do the same thing. We have metadata, so readmes of the files are available. And you can see when in those readmes when data is estimated availability and information on the instruments, etc. So that's all compiled really nicely in this campaign section. We have AWAKEN 2023 tab here too, but because it's ongoing, it's not finished yet. So if you wanted to access data for during this time, you would have to navigate to the CLAMPS tabs, and you can find those same variables as well, DLFP. They're just kind of also intermingled with some other variables here, whereas when the campaign finishes, we'll be able to input into the AWAKEN 2023 section, and so you can find it nice and easily. But yeah, that's the thread server. And so going back, we also have, which is really nice, a CLAMPS walkthrough, which is a quick little like demo of how to work with the CLAMPS data once you get it. And so we have here at University of Oklahoma a BLISS group, which is a boundary layer group within the School of Meteorology. And you can navigate to research, resources, code resources. And so we have a bunch of boundary layer resources listed on this website. And if we want to go to CLAMPS specifically, we'll click this CLAMPS demo and click this first tab, CLAMPS Introduction. And so this demonstrates how to use the Siphon package for being able to work with the data without downloading it, which is really powerful because if you want to work with several months of CLAMPS data, you don't want to have to download all of it. And so I have that some of that script here where I demonstrate using that, and you can basically call the Siphon package, use the catalog from the thread server, run that. And I just took an example of the last few days that were run. And then if you want a specific date, you can choose a specific date. I just chose this one here. And you can run this and have the arguments. And then this is where you run the Siphon package part. So this is now working data that you can work with without having to download everything. And that's really powerful to use. And so all of this is publicly available. And then if you want to download the data, there's also instructions for how to do that easily here too. So yeah, CLAMPS is, there's a bunch of publicly accessible options for being able to either view it or just look at it or download the data and work with it yourselves. So that's all I have for today. And if there are any questions, I know we have a couple of other presentations, but either now or if you want to email me, feel free to, and I'm happy to answer anyone's questions. But thank you for listening.